Hello everybody, we're reacting to this story. I've already watched some of these. I've got food. Mid spirits better.
Some fries also. The fry was not enough left.
Thank you. Oh, that's just different. Oh, that's one minute. So, I know I just skipped a lot, but cannibal one. Okay guys, type in
Shouldn't be stressful. It was the middle of the night as I was hacking through a thick area of heavy leaves and brush with my machete, and also attempting to swat away the rat-sized mosquitoes as my family followed our guide through the Amazon jungle towards our archaeological dig site. Sweat soaked through my shirt, and my feet were killing me. I had just gotten over having food poisoning, so I was pretty weak. There were bats up in the trees and coiled up snakes dangling from tree branches. Our guide Mateo walked up ahead and had been eerily quiet for a while now. Mateo, is everything all right? He barely acknowledged my question and kept walking.
Mateo?
My stomach dropped. Something wasn't right. A few minutes later, we reached the archaeological dig site. It was an incredible stone structure I'd only ever seen in pictures. My wife Elena and my daughter Maya stared at it, both mesmerized. I started setting up camp, and Mateo stopped me. No, wait. He pointed at a low branch and showed me a piece of red cloth tied around it. What does it mean? His eyes grew narrow, and he shook his head. We must leave this area, right now. But this is where we're supposed to be. This is why we came. You are supposed to listen to me and do what I say. We must leave and never return. You need to at least tell me why. Because they are watching us. Who's watching us? Just do what I say. We leave now. But we had an agreement, and we just hiked 17 miles to get here. I don't care. I will return your money. I thought they were all gone, but they are not. We walk back now. Who? Who are you talking about? Something terrified him deeply, and I had no idea what it was. Just tell me something so I understand. Is it the Hichi tribe? He was shocked that I heard of them. You know about them. I studied them when I was a young archaeologist. I know that they're religious people with wild beliefs, but I thought they had gone extinct, as did I. But we are both wrong. Okay, we will leave. But my wife is in a lot of pain from spraining her ankle, and she needs to rest. We'll go back, but we've been hiking for over 10 hours. Can we at least just rest here for a bit and then go? Mateo didn't want to agree, but nodded. 1 hour, then we leave. We all laid down and tried to get some rest. I quickly dozed off, then woke up at dawn to an eerie silence. A few more hours must have passed by then, I thought. I saw my wife and daughter sleeping next to me, but Mateo was gone, vanished. The weirdest part was that his backpack, personal belongings, and his boots were still here. Why would he leave all of that behind? Terror creeped in. Maya woke up. Dad, where's Mateo? I'm not sure. I stood up, looked out, and at the tree line, evenly spaced 15 feet apart, were the same red cloths tied to tree branches. I counted 6 before I realized they continued in a complete circle around us. Then I saw the first person watching us. He had a painted face. His body was in red clay and white ash, and he was standing motionless between 2 trees on the south side. Then a second man in what I can only describe as a devil mask was standing on the east side. Then I saw another man, then another, then another, all standing facing blank expressions as they eerily stepped out of the shadows. There were about 50 of them, all men. They had knives holstered in leather belts. I had never felt such a sinking feeling of horror. Elena and Maya joined me, speechless. Elena was quietly terrified and took Maya's trembling hand. 8 of them walked towards us, no weapons drawn. One was taller than the others, his devil mask painted black where theirs were white. He stopped 6 feet in front of me and tapped his chest twice. My hands trembled, my stomach turned to knots. He pointed at us, then pointed at the river, and raised one finger. I understood the grammar of one raised finger in any language. It meant that we needed to follow them and didn't have a choice. Fear crept up my spine. The hike was long and silent. 3 hours upriver. Maya tried to whisper something to me, and a guard at her left tapped 2 fingers against his own lips, instructing her to stay quiet. I started watching the guard's hands. These people had an entire vocabulary through hand gestures that I couldn't understand. My wife had a light sprain on her ankle, but seemed to be managing it. It was probably only getting worse. We arrived at their village, and I saw that it was embedded into a cliff, which meant it would be impossible for any satellites to see it from above. Only one dirt pathway led to thick mud houses with children watching from doorways with curious eyes. I let out a quiet gasp of fear when we were taken past a row of human skulls that were arranged on a low fence, the way another culture might keep flower pots. Maya looked down at her feet, horrified. Elena looked at me, hoping I had an answer or a plan. I didn't. At the center of the village, they led us to what I can only assume was the leader. He was a tall, massive man sitting on a gold throne. He wore a crown made from what looked like bones painted black. He held a spear and stared at me like I was truly nothing to him. He pointed at Elena, then at Maya, then gave hand signals to the man that led us up here. They instantly grabbed my wife and pulled her away. I yelled, "No, get your hands off of my wife." I reached out to grab her, but it was too late. He dragged her away as she reached for me, shaking and sobbing out of fear. Maya frantically wrapped her arms around my waist and closed her eyes, terrified. I held her tight. "It's gonna be okay." Another man ripped her arms off of me. "Don't touch her. She's just a kid." I tried to shove past him, but they were too strong. She kicked and screamed. "Don't let them take me, Daddy. I'll find you, baby. Try to be strong." My heart sank watching Maya being taken away. We locked eyes as she teared up and faded into the distance. Another man grabbed my arm and shoved me into a 5-foot-long cage. I started to quietly panic and felt this overwhelming sense of claustrophobia being in this tiny cage. Mosquitoes kept attacking me, and all I had was a muddy ground to sit on. The height of the cage was too low for me to stand up straight, so I was forced to crouch down by several inches, which ached my legs even more. But I watched these people. They were carrying water and food, some staring at me. The kids were playing with small spears and were vicious with each other. I couldn't stop shaking. What the hell was this place? But then someone else screamed. 2 villagers in devil masks walked Mateo out and placed him down on his knees in front of the leader. His hands were tied up behind his back, and he was quietly shivering and crying. He caught me looking at him out of the corner of his eye and yelled, "You have to get out of here. They're gonna kill us. They said they need 4 sacrifices by noon tomorrow." I felt my blood go cold. The massive leader slipped on his mask, grabbed an axe, said a few words to Mateo in their own language, and Mateo begged for his life. "I am a good worker. I can..."
For all sorts of games, for all sorts of treats. Not silent assassins.
Games! We've got all sorts. Paddy Power games.
Worker. I can make food and clothing. I can... Several villagers raised their arms up to the sky and prayed and chanted. "Bukaraka, Bukaraka," Mateo wept. "Please spare my life. I am one of you." But I saw the leader stare at him. Then he raised his axe. "No, please." And just as he swung it down, I covered my face. I was shivering. I knew I was probably next. If I had just listened to him and left immediately, we'd all be safe right now. It took everything in me not to be sick. Then I noticed several villagers joyfully grab Mateo's body and carry him away. Then it hit me like a ton of bricks. These people were cannibals. This was a normal routine for them. The skulls on the fence weren't decoration. They were trophies. I realized that I needed to escape as quickly as possible because me and my family were next. My mind was racing and my heart was pounding as I thought through several scenarios of escaping. A few minutes later, a little kid that couldn't have been more than 5 years old kept smiling at me while he was eating something with a wooden fork. His friend pushed him, causing his wooden fork to fly out of his hand and land near my cage. I quickly grabbed it and hid it behind my back. I couldn't see where Elena and Maya were, which was terrifying. It was unimaginable to me what might be happening to them. I waited until dark, broke off a small piece of the wooden fork, and used it to pop open the lock on my cage. These people didn't have the most stringent security. They didn't have to because this village was so remote. I snuck behind the cage, then quickly ran into the jungle. I just had to get away, but just as I thought I was safe, I heard footsteps behind me. Then I saw him. Another masked man from the tribe was watching me, just staring, but he just stayed there. He knew that I wouldn't just leave my wife and daughter behind, so he really wasn't worried about where I went off to, and he was right. He knew I had no choice. I kept running, and finally found our camp from last night. I finally had food, water, but I knew I was running out of time. I needed to hurry. The thought of what my poor wife and daughter were going through was horrifying. I ripped open Mateo's backpack, found a machete, climbing rope, fishing line, 2 road flares, and a bag of digging spikes. I also found a small leather notebook. It was half in Spanish with pencil sketches of hand signs. His notebook was a dictionary. Mateo wrote on a page, "Will the lost child return to his people?" Was he talking about himself? Then I found the word that the villagers were all chanting, Bukaraka. I had spent 20 years studying how ancient people lived. It means blood of the returning betrayer. Mateo used to be one of them. No wonder he was the first one to take this job. I continued reading and discovered that there must be 4 sacrifices before the next full moon. Number 1, the betrayer. It said he will be slain. That was Mateo. Number 2, it states that she must be given to the water gods, which I can only assume meant they would take my wife to the river. My hands started to shake. Then number 3, which stated they would sacrifice her to the god of fire. And number 4, the king. They were setting up a rope and meant to be a sacrifice to the god of air. And if my studies of Mateo's journal were correct, Elena was next. I learned every hand gesture I could in 10 minutes, then rushed back up towards the village. Just as I got there, I saw someone. A scrawny messenger carried a long cloth-wrapped bundle to a shack near the river. It was his normal job. He probably did it daily. I looked at my arm, and it gave me an idea. Luckily, I was a similar shade of brown skin. I came up with a plan. I could go undercover and maybe blend in with the natives. I knew I had to, even if it had very little chance at working. I mixed clay and limestone and made the body paint, then made a mask from some tree bark. I put it all on, and I was in full-on disguise mode. This had to work. Right before dawn, I waited near the pathway that went up to the village. The messenger came up the path towards me with his package. He was heading back up to the village. I hid behind a tree and waited for him to get close. Then I tackled him to the ground, grabbed the back of his head, smacked him into a rock, and knocked him out. I took his bundle, headed up the pathway, and made it to the outskirts of the village. The first 3 villagers I passed touched their foreheads with 2 fingers, signaling a greeting. I returned the gesture exactly the way I'd seen it. I was sweating, but so far, they were buying it. Then I needed to find Elena's cage, and started searching for it. A guard stepped right in my face. I bowed my head down and started to step past him, but he raised one hand to stop me and pointed at my feet. I looked down and slowly realized that the messenger had been wearing woven sandals. I was wearing my hiking boots. He looked up at my face. He couldn't see my eyes through the mask, but he could see my chin. My chin was the wrong color underneath the clay. He yelled out something guttural in his native language, making the entire village erupt into chaos. He pointed at me, and I knew I was caught. I panicked, took off running for the tree line, looked behind me, and saw 7 men chasing me with spears and hatchets. My heart was racing. They were screaming at me. But just as I ran into the forest, I quickly hid underneath the canopy of a low tree. The men ran past me. I covered myself with mud and only survived because it was still somewhat dark underneath the heavy leaves. I stayed completely still for a few minutes, praying they'd leave. But then I heard a different word being chanted. I looked out over the clearing and saw 20 women villagers all carrying Elena above their heads. She was wearing a long white gown and was crying in terror.
This is where life comes to life. I would recommend Sensodyne Clinical White to my patients with sensitive teeth that are looking for whiter teeth.
Crying in terror, I knew I was running out of time. I snuck over towards the river, desperately trying to come up with some way to save her. I felt the sweat dripping. I had to do something fast. I had to create something big and distracting enough for me to somehow get Elena away from them without realizing it. And as I looked down at the bamboo at my feet, it hit me. What would do that better than fire? I was running out of options. I only had minutes before they would sacrifice her. They were chanting, so I started grabbing up as much bamboo as I could and pulled the flare gun out of my backpack. I knew it was now or never, so I took a deep breath, lit it, aimed, and threw it. It quickly went up in flames and started spreading towards the edge of the lake. I backed up and had to run before it burned me. I kept going and heard them chanting. I looked up ahead, but they were still going. I could see the fire spreading, but it wasn't enough. The main village woman said a prayer up to the skies, grabbed Elena by the back of the head, and dipped her face down into the water. She held her down with all her strength as Elena was desperately trying to break free, her arms flailing, legs kicking back. I started to panic. They didn't see the fire. She was starting to lose consciousness as her body was no longer fighting. I picked up a branch and ran over. It caught fire, burning my hand, but I kept going. I threw it behind them, but the female villagers were so busy chanting and praying up at the sky to notice. Then the fire started to catch on her dress. Suddenly, she screamed. They all saw the fire and instantly started panicking, running away from her. They let go of her, and this was my chance. I ran to Elena, but she wasn't moving. I pulled her out of the water. Elena, please! I knew I had no time, so I instantly slammed my hands down on her chest. Please, wake up, darling! I performed CPR on Elena and rapidly went back and forth from chest compressions to mouth. Back and forth, I worked desperately. Come back to me! Come on! I was terrified to lose her. She was the love of my life. I worked harder, faster, and with even more urgency, and she still wasn't responding. It didn't matter. I would give her CPR until I passed out if I had to. 2 minutes in, I gave her a hard chest compression, and she jolted up and spit out a gallon of water and sucked in a long, deep breath. She was alive. Thank God, you made it. I'm here. It's okay. Where am I? We need to go. I carried her away from the embankment and hid her underneath a tree. We kissed and hugged and shed a few tears together. I tried to lift her up so we could escape, but she grimaced in pain. I can't go. Stop. Wait. Her ankle had swelled up enormously and she couldn't walk. Elena held back tears. Have you seen Maya? I shook my head. We have to go. I can carry you. She stopped me. I can't go with you. I'll only slow you down. We held each other for a few moments. Stay hidden right here, darling. After I rescue Maya, I'll come back for you. You have my word. I kissed her one more time, made sure she was hidden underneath some mud and leaves, and left. I made my way back towards the outskirts of the village and had to try and locate where they had taken Maya. I knew I had to hurry. I hid behind a rock and saw the masked leader talking to more of them. I saw his hand gestures. Each one. Go. Find. Intruder. Kill. They all raised their spears and split up. I had to act fast. I snuck around, went from behind a mud hut, then snuck over to another, but then I heard footsteps. My heart stopped. I looked around and saw a barrel to hide behind. He was right there, so I dove behind it. He walked right in front of me and stopped. Sweat dripped down my forehead and I held my breath. He got close, closer, closer. He was right beside me, on the other side of the wooden barrel. Then, a branch snapped several feet away from inside the forest. He instantly looked and ran towards it. I waited for the coast to be clear, then stole a mask from a table in front of a mud house and secretly made my way through the village in search of Maya. I was in constant fear of getting caught as I looked everywhere and couldn't find her. I whispered to myself in a panic, "Please God, tell me she's okay." But just as I got to the middle of the village, I saw it. Maya was propped up in front of one of the mud huts, and 2 village women were in front of her, and she was wearing what looked like a fur bikini and was covered from head to toe in red clay paint. They were making her drink out of a gold cup, and she shook her head, not wanting her to. The village woman was mean as hell, which seriously pissed me off. "No, don't make me drink it." They poured it into her mouth anyway. She coughed, and I felt my fists clench. They were getting ready. I needed to save her now before they started their sick chanting. I looked across the way and saw 3 villagers light a small fire around a wooden stake. I remembered Mateo's book. It said fire. This was where they were taking her. I needed to stop this now, but had no idea how. I thought about it. Fire must be done by the leader, or the ritual is cursed. Only he could do it, and I knew I had to save her before he did. They turned around, leaving Maya there. This was my chance. I snuck over, praying they wouldn't see me. She was right there. I whispered, "Maya," but she didn't look right. "Maya, it's me." She looked over, and I saw her eyes. She was barely awake, and I knew something was in whatever she drank. I tried to get over to her. She was right there. I reached to cut the rope off of her, but then someone screamed. A guard pointed at me and yelled out. Everyone came running, and they all saw me, pointing their spears. I tried to run, but every direction I went, I was completely surrounded. There was nowhere left to run. They all started walking closer, and I knew this was it for me. I failed. Their leader pushed through the crowd, staring at me with fury in his eyes. They were starting the fire and ready to take Maya, but I remembered what it said. Fire must be done by the leader. Blood must be drawn by the sacrifice.
Hargreaves, Lansdowne.
This is Formula One at its finest. It's lights out, and away we go.
What it said. Fire must be done by the leader. Blood must be drawn by the sacrifice first, or the ritual is cursed. They had to draw blood from me, an outsider first, or their sacrifice wouldn't work. I knew I had to challenge him. It was my only choice. I needed to prove to these villagers that their spiritual rituals have failed, and that they're the ones that are cursed. They were closing in, but at that moment, I pointed at the leader. They all froze. You! I challenge you! But then, I heard a drum roll. I turned around to see 20 or so villagers carrying Maya above their heads in a procession towards a wooden stake. She was fully made up with body and face paint, and her head was drooping down like she had been drugged. They were chanting something up towards the sky in their own language. They put her on the small plank and tied her hands behind her back to the wooden stake. The fire was just below her feet and was starting to rise. I had to do something quickly, or else they were about to burn her alive. I stepped in front of the masked leader's throne, made the loudest, most guttural yell I could. I knew this would be the only way I could get him to face me and stand up. The villagers all stopped after I yelled and turned to face me. Their leader stood up, not expecting me to raise my voice at him like I did. I had pure primal rage in my eyes, and I needed to piss him off, so I shoved him, held up my hatchet, and yelled, "Fight me, you ugly bastard! Come on, fight me!" His villagers hadn't ever seen someone threaten their leader before. It worked. He grimaced with murderous rage, grabbed a sword and circled me. He said something to his people, which made all of them surround us. They wanted to see their leader murder me. I briefly locked eyes with Maya and tried to signal confidence to her. She was grimacing in agony as the fire below her was quickly rising. I only had a few seconds before the fire would totally engulf her. The masked leader tossed off his mask, pointed at me, and laughed. He was truly a hulking man. He probably stood at least 6 feet 6 inches tall and weighed at least 300 pounds. When he laughed, his villagers all followed and were cracking up hysterically. I was terrified and hadn't ever felt a murderous rage like that in my life. "Come on, you fat ass. Take your best shot." I figured if I got him pissed off enough, he might make a mistake. He cornered me against a mud hut, swung his sword down at me, and I tried to block it with my hatchet. His sword literally snapped my hatchet in half. My hands ached from the pain of gripping so tight. I had no weapon, and he had freakish power and speed. He swung down at my face again, and I leaped out of the way and barely managed to avoid the blow. The one small advantage I had was that I was quicker than him. My life flashed before my eyes as he swung down at my face. For a split second I thought, is this the end? Then I saw my daughter's face and snapped out of it. I slipped away from his attack, rushed over to his throne and searched for some type of a weapon. Shit, I didn't find anything. I would have to somehow disarm him and steal his sword. I turned back around to face him and felt more and more insecure. I was running out of options and started to seriously panic. The villagers started chanting, "Canabacha, Canabacha, Canabacha." I looked over at Maya, and she was screaming and crying, feeling the flames below her even worse now. Then my eyes darted down at the ground, and I got an idea. I needed to use what I know, the earth, use it to my advantage. He lunged at me, and I rolled down to the ground, grabbed a handful of dirt, and flung it into his eyes. He was temporarily blinded, which meant this was my chance, my only chance. I tried to grab the sword out of his hands, but he swung a punch across my head with his other hand and nailed me in the temple. I flew 4 feet through the air, and the side of my face landed hard on a rock. I saw stars, then saw the leader's mask on the ground, and noticed that the bottom of it that covered the chin was seriously sharp. Under my breath, my weapon. I grabbed it and heard the ground pounding as he was rapidly moving towards me to finish me off. He swung his sword down again, and he missed by half an inch as I quickly crawled through his legs, used the bottom of the mask, and shoved it up into his groin. His eyes went wide as he dropped his sword and covered his private parts. His blood started dripping into the dirt. As soon as it did, his eyes bulged in panic. The entire village saw his blood being spilled, but it wasn't from me. I looked around and went from screaming and laughing to complete silence, all within a second. They all realized their sacrifice was ruined, but they all glared at me and looked more vicious than I had ever seen. I wasn't sure if they would all try and kill me or worship me. Then the strangest thing happened. One female villager started to yell up at the sky and cry, along with several children. Then many other villagers followed them, weeping up at the sky. It was what I had hoped might happen. They felt cursed for failing at these rituals. The leader sunk down onto his knees in the sand and wept like a baby. "Dad, help me." I turned to see Maya, who was almost fully engulfed in flames. Luckily, the entire village was consumed by grief, which gave me a window, so I rushed over to her, kicked and tossed a bunch of sand over the fire below her, and put it out. I quickly untied her from the wooden stake. "You okay? Are you burnt?" She was trembling, and her feet and legs were red from the fire. "I think I'm okay. You can walk?" She nodded, so I took her by the hand, and we ran towards the lake where Elena was hiding. We made it over to her and helped her up and out of the mud. Both of us put arms around her and helped her hobble out of the village and down the pathway. Elena was still freaked out. "Are they behind us? Please don't let them get us again, Dad." "I won't." I kept turning back to see if we were being chased, but we weren't. "We're okay now. I ruined their entire structure of survival. They don't care about us anymore." About 2 hours later, we made it down to the base of the mountain to safety, and I held my family close. We all wept with what we had all just experienced. We were so close to meeting our deaths, but even though we were all injured, traumatized, and barely still breathing, we were alive. I love you both. Love you too. All we knew was we had to get the hell out of here. We hopped onto the first airplane and flew home. I kissed the ground of the tarmac once we landed in the States.
That's it. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I actually did.